Somebody asked me this week, why do you only talk about religion and not about other things? Well, when you talk about religion, you really are talking about other things in the modern world, if you'll pardon that euphemism for what we've actually got. Indeed, some people even talk about religion now in terms of a clash of cultures when they say that Islam and democracy don't get along because, like hospitals and health, or like justice and the law, or like Jesus and born-again Christians, they've got nothing in common. I think that politics and religion is an extremely dangerous mixture because, like sulphur and saltpeter, on their own they're manageable enough, but put them together and you get gunpowder. And I think this is the reason why, for example, the fanatics who flew into the Twin Towers or the lunatics who blew themselves up in London, although they were politically motivated, they only went through with it because of what they believed about the afterlife, or more exactly about the unknowable. And I think this is the danger of religion. It operates in this world of reason, but outside the bounds of reason, which is a polite way of saying outside the bounds of sanity. Some countries, like Iran, for example, are governed by religious fundamentalist nutcases. Other countries, like Israel and Pakistan, owe their very existence to religion. And of course, let's not forget the Vatican, which has a seat at the United Nations because it somehow managed to persuade people that it's a legitimate country, all the better for stifling any birth control initiatives that may have slipped under the American government's radar. Without religion, Pakistan and Israel, of course, wouldn't exist. And what a sad loss that would be. That would be almost as bad as losing Nigeria, wouldn't it? And there's a country divided by fundamentalist religion. Muslims to the north, Christians to the south, maybe a few Jews in between, but not for long, I'll bet. As for Pakistan, well, that only exists because about 60 years ago in that part of the world, Muslims and Hindus, they just couldn't get along and they couldn't stop slaughtering each other with machetes for more than 5 seconds at a time, so the only solution was to start up a whole new country, which is as good as saying, we can never live together, we'll always be enemies. Let's both build nuclear weapons and see how it goes. I think it's quite ironic that the first nuclear conflict on this planet could easily erupt between Muslims and Hindus, or between teetotalers and vegetarians. Clearly, red meat and alcohol may be killers, but they're nothing compared with human stupidity. And that's never in short supply, especially where religion is concerned. For example, how long do we have to wait for a serious American presidential candidate to admit that they don't believe in God? In other words, how long do we have to wait for American politics to grow up? Right now, they're all terrified of losing the ignorance vote, because that's the vote that's going to elect the president. And what a wonderful job it did last time. Of course, we can't crow too much in the United Kingdom because our ex-Prime Minister, Mr. Blair, a man with impeccable Christian credentials, now has a new job as Middle East peace envoy, which is going to mean a few slippery handshakes as he meets people with almost as much blood on their hands as he has. He's not as popular as he was, Mr. Blair, because having lied as he did in order to invade Iraq with all the gung-ho enthusiasm of somebody who has never seen war and whose own son is not in the firing line, he showed us basically who he is. And now, of course, he senses our contempt, so it's no wonder he's in denial. You can see it in his eyes. He can't wait to move to America. Before he resigned, he criticised the British press and compared them to feral beasts. And it's true that the British press can be very irresponsible, but not nearly as irresponsible as the cowardly American press, which is so crawlingly supine and unwilling to criticise their stupid and criminal government for fear of appearing unpatriotic that they've literally become a laughingstock all over the world. I think the British press, though, were actually quite kind to Mr. Blair, because any other head of state with his track record they'd be calling to have prosecuted for war crimes. So I suppose it's grimly appropriate that he's now decided to convert to that traditional friend of the war criminal, the Catholic faith, or the Brotherhood of the Damned, as I prefer to think of it. Now, all in all, I think politics and religion are just too closely entwined, and I think we need to prize them apart if civilization is going to remain on the agenda. Of course, nobody knows what the future holds. You could say it's in God's hands, or old Butterfingers, as I like to call him. But the way things are going, it might not even get here, because right now we're engaged in a tug of war with the past. And lately it's been digging its heels in, and I think this is one that we really do need to win, because if we lose, we're going to find ourselves back in the Dark Ages, where knowledge is a crime and where free speech is blasphemy. And that's really the reason why I talk about religion and not other things. Peace and love to one and all, if that's not wishful thinking.